Coping with COVID and In It Together SC present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.
Good afternoon and happy Wellness Wednesday. I'm Tre Tailor and In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with Tre Tailor. And today we're coping with back to school, the events, the pressure, the shots. Oh my. And we'll cover all of that and more with Dr. Peter Loper with Prisma Health. He joins us. Friend to the show, Dr. Jennifer Rice also joins us. And Erica Staley from Serve and Connect. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Oh, ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. Oh, and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. That and more coming up next on Coping with Tre Tailor. But first, your COVID community updates. Kids are going back to school this week with less restrictions as it concerns COVID. No masks or spacing requirements, but doctors do recommend that parents make certain their children are vaccinated and immunized. Now, students will also still have to stay home if they test positive for COVID, but they can return after their symptoms have improved and are fever-free for 24 hours. Now, if a child has had contact with someone who tested positive, they do not have to quarantine and can go to school as normal. This, as over half of the state's 46 counties have high community spread of COVID. A couple of job opportunities to share. The post office is hosting a job fair tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the post office in Columbia, South Carolina on Main Street. They're looking for mail carriers, postal support employees, and custodial workers throughout the state. You can apply online if you don't want to stop by the main branch in Columbia tomorrow at usps.com/careers. You can see that information on the screen. Now, you must be at least 18 years old and be able to pass a drug screening and background check. And Pet Supplies Plus is making a multi-million-dollar investment to bring almost 300 jobs to Orangeburg County next year. Now, the distribution center is located at the Shamrock Commerce Center at the intersection of US 301 and I-26 near exit 154. Applicants can visit the company website to apply for the openings. Applying for the new jobs can find them at the company website. You can see that on the screen. The center, again, is expected to begin operation in 2023. SCDHEC has your most up-to-date list of times, dates, and location for COVID testing and vaccinations in and around South Carolina. Visit scdhec.gov. Now, throughout the show, you will see scrolling at the bottom of the screen all types of information concerning COVID, including where you can get your 5 free rapid COVID tests, information about the VA for veterans who also get their COVID tests and vaccinations there. All of the retailers in and around South Carolina and throughout the country that are offering both COVID tests and COVID vaccinations, including Kroger Pharmacies, CVS, and Walgreens. Also, the Comet bus system in Columbia, South Carolina. Not only can you get your COVID shot at the Comet main location at the corner of Sumter and Laurel Streets in Columbia, but you can also catch a free ride from the Comet to get your COVID vaccination. If you or someone you know is having some challenges getting set up to get their COVID vaccination or either their test, they can call Get Set Up and get online help and registration. Also, so many financial resources are still available in and around South Carolina, including the FEMA COVID funeral reimbursement, SC Bar Association, and SC Legal Services. They have a toll-free number and website for rental and mortgage help. Lexington County has a bill assistance program. SC Housing and Dominion Energy have a rental and utilities assistance program. And if you or someone you know is having a challenge coping with COVID, the South Carolina Department of Mental Health has a 24-hour assistance line entitled SC Hopes. Now, we were telling you last week about the more jobs that are available for the South Carolina State Fair. That's right. South Carolina State Fair is the largest event in South Carolina, and they've got temporary employment opportunities available. You can see that information on the screen. And again, all of this information that we've been telling you will be scrolling at the bottom of the screen throughout the show. So please post and share so we can get the message to the masses. We also have been sharing with you all of the different back to school events. I hit a couple of them, and then Erica Staley with Serve and Connect will be with us a little bit later on in the show to tell us about all of that information and so much more. I'm Tre Tailor, and thank you so much for joining us for Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. We're actually streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page. Please go over there, hit like and share and follow, and you can receive notifications not only as to when we go live every Wednesday on Wellness Wednesday, but all of the great content they have on that In It Together Facebook page, including food tips, how to live a healthy lifestyle, and also how to find a diabetes prevention program. Now, those are being held once again throughout the state, not only in person, but virtually. So here's a great opportunity for you to connect and get support and encouragement and so much information on how to live a healthy lifestyle. And you don't have to live in South Carolina. You can live anywhere in the world and be a part of the diabetes prevention program and all of the wonderful things they do there. We're also streaming live on the In It Together YouTube channel. So please go over there and hit the subscribe button. Now, we are also streaming live. Thank you, Charity, for putting up the logo on the Tailor-Made Production page on Facebook. We are streaming live there. We're streaming live on the YouTube channel. There you can find almost 3 years of content, interviews, and information on COVID and coping with whatever you may be coping with, because as we know, we'll always be coping with something. We also have a presence on Instagram and also on Twitter. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with Tre Tailor. I'm Tre Tailor. And don't forget, we also have a comment section. If you have a question or a comment, we would love to hear from you. Today, we're coping with back to school. And while the kiddies have their new book bags, their supplies, and their clothes, are they ready emotionally? Well, Dr. Peter Loper with Prisma Health joins us. He's a multidisciplinary board certified in psychiatry and pediatrics, adult psychiatry, and child and adolescent psychiatry. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Loper. I appreciate it. Is it Loper or Looper?
Loper.
It is Loper.
Yeah.
What great hair you have.
Call me Pete. I'm totally
okay. Okay. Do they call you Dr. Pete?
Not always, but yeah, that works too.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to give you all your due and all those years you spent in school. So I want to call you Dr. something. So
well, thank you. That's very sweet of you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today. In the open, I mentioned that we are so focused on making sure our kids are ready for every aspect, except for maybe the emotional aspect. And you know what, as I was thinking about it, preparing for the show, that's not only for the kids, it's for parents also. I want to throw up a picture of, I'm raising my grandchildren, and my 6-year-old Julius, he starts first grade, and I think we've got a picture of him. He starts first grade. Now that's not the picture I want the sad picture. He already went to the school. He was there last year for 5K. He's at East Point Academy, and he's familiar with the school. We went to back to school day. He met his teachers and everything. And today he was sad. He was crying because he said he didn't know. Well, what he said was it's a new school, but it wasn't a new school. It was a new grade. And in talking to some of the parents, there were so many stories like that. Somebody said even the third graders who had been to school 3 years are having problems. I talked to one parent who said her little girl said she didn't want to meet any new friends. So what do you do when your child is having an emotional meltdown, not because he doesn't want to go to school because of the academics, but just because it's new and frightening and different?
Yeah, absolutely. So today was first day of school for our kids in our household as well. The first thing I would say is that, anxiety and distress, that is such a beautiful moment for adaptive problem solving in our kids. I think oftentimes we misconceptualize anxiety, distress, sadness as being quote unquote negative. But in reality, in those moments where our kids are exhibiting that distress, it's a great opportunity to acknowledge that. Not to value judge it. If you can, sit patiently with it and with the child as they engage with that distress, because that's a normal part of life. It adds to the richness of the human experience. A lot of parents are probably going to be like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. The kid's wailing and so distressed, but it does. It adds to the richness of the human experience. because without those moments of distress, we can't really enjoy those moments of great joy as well. And we can't enjoy that moment in 2 weeks from now, or maybe at the end of the day, when they come back home, and they said, this was the best day ever, and I had such a great time. So just creating that space for your kids to be who they are in the moment and access those feelings can be really important. And it's really important to acknowledge in times of change of routine, distress is going to occur, especially in our younger kids.
Yeah.
That's normal.
So you're saying just talk to them, just say, hey, it's going to be, and that's what I did. I said, hey, first of all, I think I was a little taken aback because he woke up, he was ready to go, first grade, get your book bag. And then when we got in the car, his whole mood changed, So it just took me aback a little bit. And he was so hyped for first grade, So I did say, honey, you'll know, some of your friends, you met your teacher, it's going to be great. It's first grade,
Okay. Which is great. That's spot on. And even if he doesn't manifest as kind of changing his affect, that is landing for him to say for sure. And just attending to those feelings and acknowledging them the way you did, that's perfect. What more could you do, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what else to do. So what if that kind of thing continues? Because I will tell you this, last year when he started at the school in 5K, he had a lot of weepy moments, like the first couple of months, to the point where he said, I want to take something of yours with me to school, so I could have something. So we ended up creating, because I mean, what do you give? A lock of hair? You know what I mean? I didn't know what to do. So we ended up creating bracelets for all three of us, me and his sister and him. And the picture shows the two of them that had all of our names on it. So that was something that I just tried to figure out something that, he could have that like a security blanket kind of thing,
Yeah, that's so beautiful. It really lands for me because there's something called a transitional object, psychobabble terms. Really what a transitional object is, it's a surrogate mom, it's a surrogate grandma, it's a surrogate dad. It's a stuffed animal or a lovey that takes the place of those that you love most. And kids can utilize those, particularly in certain points in their development, to help navigate those moments where they may be feeling more distress. Certainly a bracelet would suffice as well, especially for older kids. The other thing that I would say about that distress, right? Distress is a normal part of adaptation and human development, but the rate limiting step to navigating distress and continuing to approach and explore and engage with the novelty that is going to the next school day is those meaningful interpersonal interactions, particularly with those they love most, mom and dad, but also with their peers at school and things like that. And so anything you can do to bolster those relationships and create an opportunity to spend more time with the kids, particularly if they're exhibiting that distress with consistency, that's going to be the name of the game.
Yeah, Dr. Peter Loper joins us. He practices at Prisma Health Midlands, where he's an assistant clinical professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Pediatrics and senior associate in the Office of Continuous Professional Development. You're watching Coping with Tre Tailor. It's Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. And today we're coping with back to school, the emotional aspects of it. Now, we probably see this more, I guess. Do you see it more in younger kids?
Absolutely. Yes, you certainly see it a lot more in younger kids, and that's because as we go through our psychosocial development, we develop an improved capacity to seek proximity to other people to help us navigate our feelings of distress, meaning that our older school-age kids, they're going to be much more able to navigate those feelings of anxiety, distress, or sadness by going and hanging out with a buddy. Versus our younger kids, they're not quite there yet developmentally. They really need that older adult to be able to seek proximity to. And especially if it's a new teacher they haven't met before, they haven't established that bond yet, it certainly can be really distressing, particularly in the early few months of school.
Yeah. The other thing that happens, I know, and I read a lot of this on social media today. I have a girlfriend, Rashonda, who she was dropping off her child for the very first time. And, and of course she was having a high anxiety.
We've all been there, right?
It was so funny because she did a live afterwards and she was like, y'all, I'm having a moment. And of course her husband was like, girl, drop that girl off and come on. Yeah. And she said she saw another parent and obviously the person's name, the mom's name was Nikki, because her husband kept saying, come on, Nikki, come on.
Yeah. And this may be the rare time that the guy might be actually correct in this situation, because one of the best things you could do in those moments is just let your child jump in the deep end and let them try to swim. And one of the things I think oftentimes as parents, especially those who are real feelers, and particularly maybe moms or grandmas, have the tendency to want to like keep the child safe and not,
Yeah.
allow them to have to engage with that distress. But one of the most important things you can do for any child who's exhibiting some school avoidance behavior or anxiety in the context of going to school is reinforce the fact that they need to continue to go to school, at which time we remove them from that distressing stimuli, school or leaving, getting out of the car, walking into the school environment. We're actually reinforcing and empowering that anxiety. And that can become a cyclical pattern that really prevents them from engaging and integrating in that school setting. And it prevents them in developing the adaptive problem solving skills to then move forward in life and engage at school on a day in and day out basis.
Yeah, you make such a good point, because the kids vibe from us, so if we're okay, for the most part, they're okay. If we're freaking out, then they're thinking, is something wrong?
Spot on. That's exactly right. And it's so interesting too, because oftentimes for me, especially, this has been an area for growth for me as I've gone through my education and training, is that just conceptualizing our kids as not being autonomous and separate from us, but there's this like bi-directional reciprocal interaction. There's this exchange of energy, to get a little meta with it, between me and my child. My child feeds off my mood, my energy, my state of being in that moment. If I'm a little anxious, they're going to feed off of that, and vice versa, right? If our kid is really triggered and not wanting to go into the school environment, that can be very distressing and anxiety provoking for ourselves as parents. One of the keys for us as parents, because we have the capacity to do so, is to model for our kids how to be calm and collected and cool, even if inside you're feeling a little distressed by the way your child's acting.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about older kids too, because while they may not have these types of problems, they're more, I guess, disconnected. We have a picture of one of our staff members, Josephine. Her daughter is going to high school, and you can see this is all she could get. That's the only picture she could get from her high schooler. Because I guess she was like, Ma, I don't take my picture.
That's so funny. I just got to acknowledge the similarity between our experience. We have 4 kids. Our oldest is a sophomore in high school.
Right.
And this is the first year she hasn't been in that family picture, group picture with all the kids on the stairs at the house. On the first day of school, she was too cool. She was already gone. But that's so normative, like developmentally, that's what we would expect. And that's so important because, as I was saying, as our kids get older, they developed an increasing capacity to hang out with other people to help them navigate their distress. And as an adolescent, now our teenagers have fully integrated in the community, and the bulk of their developmental process, meaning the bulk of those moments where they're experiencing distress and organizing those feelings of distress so that they're willing to re-engage in whatever experience they're engaging with, is going to come from that social support from their friends. Yeah. And that's super important to acknowledge that, and it's healthy and good. As much as a parent, it definitely may hurt.
Well, listen, at least Josephine got a picture. You didn't get any picture today.
Yes, there were none. No pictures.
Oh, my God. Dr. Peter Loper is executive leadership coach at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. He's also a practicing physician at Prisma Health in Columbia, South Carolina. And today we're coping with back to school, talking about something that we don't talk about a lot, I think, is the emotional part of going back to school for parents and for kids. We talked a little bit about Josephine's older ones, and our graphic artist, Tanisha, she has 3. She has a little one, and then she's got, 2 older kids. And you see there, all of them look very happy. But when you are going into, like, if you're leaving elementary school, going into middle school, leaving middle school, going into high school, there's got to be some kind of anxiety, because now you're the low man on the totem pole, and you're going into a whole new environment. How do we help our kids deal with that?
Yeah, and that's like exactly true. And just the first thing to reemphasize is that for parents, remember, from anxiety and distress comes adaptation and development. So that's really important.
Right.
But trees grow in soil and sunlight. Human beings grow and develop in the medium of love. And you spell love, Time, and Attention, time and attention, regardless of age, right? Your adolescents aren't going to need as much of your direct time and attention, but nonetheless, in those transitional moments where they're transitioning from middle school to high school, they're going to be pretty distressed. And so being intentional about spending more time and giving them more of your attention during the early part of the school year so as to help to mitigate that distress that they're experiencing so that they're willing to continue to engage and develop is going to be super important. And then double goes for the younger kids. With the younger kids, now is a point in time when your kids get home from school, be intentional about setting that time aside to give them direct one-on-one attention to the best that you can. It's really within that medium of time and attention that they're going to be able to successfully navigate that distress and develop.
I'm glad you mentioned time because before you go, I want to talk about time balancing activities and academics.
Yeah, if you find the secret, you let me know. And it's really interesting because I was having this conversation with a friend of mine last night. Like so our two little ones are in baseball. The oldest boy is in soccer, and then our high schooler is doing varsity cheer this year. So like we're all over the place.
Yeah.
And the reality is that it's really, really important that our kids are plugged into those extracurricular activities. And it's also really important that they engage in doing their homework and their schoolwork.
Right.
But the problem is finding the time. And I think that one of the mistakes that we often make as parents is that we fall prey to this kind of socially prescribed idea that our kids aren't successful unless they're in 15 different activities at a time. I think that back to this idea of intention and being intentional with your time, just allowing them to pick one or two activities, extracurricular activities in addition to their school is really going to help them in terms of their developmental process. It allows them to be more intentional with how they spend their time. It allows them to the opportunity to be more successful because they're able to spend more time on the things that they enjoy, but really be intentional as a family, as a parent, and whittling it down to one or two activities that you're going to support your child in engaging in at a time.
Yeah, I definitely would love for you to come back because I want to talk about peer pressure, bullying. I want to talk about more homework. And then I really want to talk about a subject that we're going to talk about a little bit Friday. We've got the folks from Nacho Kids on. I don't know if you're familiar with them. It's Nacho Kids, like it's about blended. I love that word name, don't you? Nacho Kids.
Yes, that's awesome.
But it's about blended families. And so I would love for you to come back because I want to talk about that because we are in our family. We're going through that now, especially with Julius. He's 6. He's trying to navigate explaining to his friends who, and families look all different types of ways, But I got to have you to come back. But before you go, I do want to ask you, is there anything else in these first couple of weeks of school, Dr. Loper, that we should be conscientious about as parents for our children in all ages?
Yeah. So number one, make sure they're getting sufficient sleep. And that's really, really important. It's not just the duration of sleep that they get, but it's also the quality. The best way to improve quality sleep is to engage in sleep hygiene with creating a bedtime routine that they engage in every single night. Get rid of the screens at least an hour before bedtime. You don't want that blue light exposure. And get them up at the same time every single day. Even on the weekends, you don't want the sleep schedule to shift by more than an hour. That would be number one. Number two, remember that anxiety is normal in times of change. It's a new routine. And the best thing you can do is don't empower the anxiety. Make sure your kids are going to school, even if they don't really want to.
Right. Dr. Peter Loper is a multidisciplinary board-certified physician in pediatrics, adult psychiatry, and child and adolescent psychiatry. He practices at Prisma Health Midlands, where he's an assistant clinical professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Pediatrics. He joins us today on Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. Dr. Loper, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. And I'd love to have you back on to talk about those other things too.
I would love to be back. And thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Coming up, we are coping with back to school on Wellness Wednesday today. Up next, Dr. Jennifer Rice, friend to the show, discusses immunizations and vaccinations, what is needed, especially during this relaxed COVID season that we're having in our schools. That's coming up next on Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. I'm Tre Tailor.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Sawyer, an entrepreneur and caregiver. Part of taking care of your health is knowing if you're at risk of type 2 diabetes. Prediabetes is serious and puts you at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. Up to 90% of South Carolinians who have it don't know they have it. Visit inittogethersc.org. Take an online test to find out your risk and join a diabetes prevention program. This message brought to you by the Diabetes Action Council of SC.
Computers, they're a part of our everyday life. But when they're not working, they're an everyday problem. So call Computers Unique, your everyday solution. 803-351-5821. Is your computer running slow? Won't turn on? Do you need a screen replaced? Or maybe you just need another computer? Well, Computers Unique is your one-stop shop for all your computer needs. They have a wide variety of new and pre-owned PCs, Macs, and tablets. So call Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. 803-351-5821. 803-351-5821.
In It Together, SC and the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with Tre Tailor. I'm Tre Tailor. And don't forget, we are streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page and on their YouTube channel. Please hit like, share, and follow on their Facebook page. Please subscribe to their YouTube channel. Man, oh man, I'm telling you, they have so much great information on both of those sites. Information, advice, fitness, eating, and more, and most importantly, how to find a diabetes prevention program so you can live your healthiest life with support and great information. We're also streaming live on the Tailor Made production page on Facebook. That's the home of Coping with COVID and Coping with Tre Tailor. Please hit like and share and follow and find out and get notifications as to when we go live Wednesday for Wellness Wednesday and then Thursday and Friday for Coping with Tre Tailor. We're also streaming live on our YouTube channel. We've got almost 3 years of content over there, information, interviews, and so much more. Please hit the subscribe button. We also have a presence on Instagram and also on Twitter. Today, we're coping with back to school. If you just joined us, please hit the replay button and check out Dr. Peter Loper with Prisma Health. He gave us some great information about how to deal with the emotional side of back to school, not only for the kids, but for you too. Dr. Jennifer Rice joins us. The board-certified family nurse practitioner, has a private practice, family practice in Lexington, South Carolina. Dr. Rice, thank you again so much for joining us. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So listen, with COVID restrictions loosening, what can we do to help protect our kids? Let's start with the little ones. My little one, and I should have got a picture of this. That girl, she's got her 4-year well visit, 3 shots, including her COVID shot and a finger prick. She didn't wince. She was a soldier. She just wanted to know what color her Band-Aids were going to be.
Well, good for her, because that's not normally how the 4-year-old checkup goes. So I'm glad she is. I mean, she's a soldier for real.
So go ahead.
So with the small ones, of course, you know, now a lot of the guidelines have been relaxed, and they're relaxing the guidelines probably more so for compliance versus, you know, true. I don't want to say that's true scientific methods, but really, if you tell people that they have to quarantine for 10 days, they usually just don't. So the 5 days rule now is, you know, what's the standard. But, you know, especially with children, we know kids are snotty and they sniffle and they rub their hands on their nose, and then they get their neighbor's pencil and put it in their mouth. And so with kids, the main thing is to really teach them to make sure that they are washing their hands before they eat, wash their hands after they go to the bathroom. Just, you know, cover your cough, not with your hand, but with your sleeve, and just practicing those measures at home and model those behaviors so they can imitate those same behaviors.
Yeah. And that's little ones, and even middle schoolers, or is it a little different once they get a little bit older in middle school?
No, they're just as gross in middle school. Probably a lot more lax, honestly, because elementary schoolers, they tend to follow the rules, but middle schoolers, they start to know everything.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking from experience. You know, my girls just left middle school. But I kind of raised my children to be germaphobes. We were doing masks before COVID, because I treated a lot of flu, and I knew when flu was really heavy in the area. And so if we went to a crowded store like Target or Walmart, because everyone goes there when they're sick. So everyone's at Target or Walmart because they're going to get their cold medicine, and they're sneezing and coughing, and they might be in the other aisle, and like you see me moving out of the way. So we would wear masks just then. So that's the main thing, is to not be around people, because I hear it over and over from people. They say, I'm not contagious because I don't have a fever. That's not true. You know, if you're sniffling, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's allergies. You know, there's no way for us really to even know if you come down, you know, with one day of symptoms, if it truly is a cold or allergies. So anytime that you have those sniffles, sore throat, cough, sneezing, just make sure that you're practicing that infection control. And we have to teach our children to do the same thing.
Yeah. So do you think the kids, and I want to get to our high schoolers and college kids, but do you think they should still wear a mask even though it's not required?
It depends on the situation. You know, for a lot of the crowded places where you know that there's not going to be a lot of space, absolutely wear that mask. But then you go into the peer pressure, which you talked about earlier. You know, some kids feel targeted, like my children said that they felt targeted last year because they wore masks. But I knew when the counts were going up, I knew that they had, you know, friends in the classroom that had their mask on. So you have to, you know, kind of weigh the good and the bad. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I don't want you to be targeted and I don't want you to feel stressed while you're in school.
Right.
But for these high schoolers and of course the college students, they don't face that same, you know, backlash. And for the most part, most of those high schoolers know that if they miss a day or two or 5 days of school, they really get behind. You know, the middle schoolers and the elementary schoolers, it's not quite as serious because this is not going towards, you know, their college. And with the college students now, so many of the courses are hybrid. So even if they were sick, it's not like they'd miss a lot because they still would be able to stream with classes.
Right. Dr. Jennifer Rice joins us. She has 22 years of experience in the nursing field and is an adjunct professor at the School of Nursing at Clemson University. She joins us today on Coping with Tre Tailor as we talk about back to school and the health aspect of it. So the little ones now can get their vaccinations. Should they be getting, what other immunizations should our kids get? Can you give us like the timeline? Like I said, I know Isabel's 4. She said, so she had a 4-year checkup and her COVID vaccine, you know, so what else should our kids be getting and make sure they have as they start back to school?
So each year, 6 months and up should actually have a flu vaccine. There are a lot of people that don't do their flu vaccinations, but you know, prior to COVID, we saw, you know, lots of flu, and, you know, flu for people that, you know, have a compromised immune system actually can get pretty, you know, sick. So you're talking your asthmatic children or children that are being raised by grandparents and, you know, people that are going through cancer treatments. Those people should receive their flu shots, you know, annually. You know, like you said, the 4-year-olds, of course, they have their shots prior to going to school. And then the next time that they get shots usually is 11. So at 11 years old, and that tends to, some of the 11-year-olds miss it, but the tetanus, the Tdap, so the tetanus and pertussis is actually required for 7th grade. So that's how a lot of people end up getting their 11-year-old shots. So they get their tetanus shot and they get a meningitis shot at 11. And it's also recommended for the HPV vaccine to help prevent against cervical and anal cancer. And that's for both boys and girls. And then at 16, they'll receive a booster of the meningitis shot. So really from 4, you know, to 16, there really aren't a lot of vaccinations other than your annual flu vaccine. And we'll see what's to come as far as COVID, if that's going to be recommended as an annual shot. I have a feeling it probably will, just like the flu shot.
Yeah.
So that probably will come. So if your children haven't received their first booster dose of the COVID vaccine, and it's been 5 months since they've received 2 doses of COVID vaccine, this would be a great time to go ahead because all the kids are back together and there's no spacing requirements now. And as soon as they sneeze, you know, that's going in the air and these kids are going to inhale all of these germs.
Yeah, I just wish they would at least require it for the little ones, because especially again, because a lot of the little ones still are not vaccinated, you know. So and Isabel, I made Isabel wear a mask, and I didn't last year when she was, you know, 3 years old. 4K I let her go this morning. I really forgot her mask. I don't think it wasn't a conscious decision. As she walked in that classroom, I thought, she doesn't have her mask on. But I let it go, girl. I didn't make a big deal out of it.
Yes. That immune system really, that the first couple of years of school, especially kids that have been in daycare, those first few years of school really are important to building up the kid's immune system.
Yeah.
So, when we didn't get exposed to the germs, we didn't see a lot of flu, we didn't see a lot of cold, sinus infections, those things. But now we're seeing all that stuff now. And so it's like, okay, well, do we go ahead and just build up these kids' immune systems now?
Yeah.
Because when they do get sick, they tend to get really, really sick. So it's almost like I want them to be, exposed so their immune system can build up. But then, of course, you don't want your kids to get, super sick and bring it to you.
Yeah. Oh, girl. Right. And you know what I'm going to tell you, you're right, because she was one of those kids. If anybody got something, she was going to get it too.
Right.
And her wearing that mask, it cut down even on her little runny nose. I mean, she looked like a glazed donut all the time, but I noticed a huge difference. Now, she has said to me, back when she was in the 3 class, Tutu, I'm the only one wearing a mask.
Yeah.
She did. And I had to say, well, honey, we don't do what other people do. We do things different at our house.
Right.
I said, and I'm doing it because I love you and I want you to be, protected. So she was okay with that. But, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, girl.
Well, we can teach, like my children know, do not walk in my kitchen and don't even open up a cabinet if you haven't washed your hands.
Right.
That is an absolute rule. So, I mean, it's up to us to teach our kids, anyone that comes to my house, they know if you're going to fix anything to eat, you better wash your hands, and I better see you like actually scrub them. I mean, I want to see those hands get lathered up, because I know how reducing, the spread of, germs keeps, my household healthy. We've not had flu in my household.
Right.
Knock on wood. But it's because we try and avoid those situations, and, someone sneezes, we're in the next room if possible.
Let's talk a little bit before you go about vitamins and minerals. What types of vitamins should our kids be taking?
So there's not really anything that's recommended. The FDA does not, regulate any vitamins. And I tell parents all the time, and adults, you get all your vitamins and minerals through the food you eat.
But if you supposed to.
You're supposed to. So if you have the picky eaters that are only eating macaroni and cheese and chicken nuggets, they're not getting everything that they need. And that could be why your kids tend to get more illnesses, because they're not getting in enough vitamin C or vitamin D. So we have to make sure that these kids have a balanced diet. Really the only thing that's recommended is if they do have anemia, some kind of blood disorder, an iron supplement, but you'd need to speak with your provider. But otherwise, there's not really a vitamin and mineral recommendation. It's more so fruits and vegetables every single day.
Yeah. So are you pro vitamin or con vitamins? I mean, mine's take a multi and a vitamin C, but I do too.
I'm pro vitamin, like vitamin D. Some of the things that are more difficult to get, especially when you have darker complected individuals, it takes a lot more sunlight. And a lot of time, I personally do not like to just sit in the sun directly. So we take vitamin D on a regular basis. Plus it's a, healthy vitamin. I'm a big believer in probiotics. Probiotics actually put the good bacteria back in the gut. Helps with the immune system. For a lot of people, our household, we have a lot of allergies. It just helps with a lot of different things as far as that. And probiotics are hard to get in the diet itself. But those, for the most part, I don't take a multivitamin. Every now and then when I think about it, I'll take a biotin if I feel like my nails are cracking a little bit.
Right.
Honestly, it truly is through dietary things. And, I recommend like protein shakes that do have some extra vitamins, because that actually does provide your body with extra nutrition.
Okay, great. And that's something we could probably, put in a smoothie or something, especially for our kids. Like I said, mine take a multivitamin and then a little chewable vitamin C. I do the same thing. And like you, I do vitamin D, some magnesium. I do the biotin and, but I'm a vegetarian. So I take supplements to replace what I'm not going to get by eating meat,
Yes. So, and you have to do that.
Yeah. But they're carnivores. I let them eat. If they want to choose something later, that's fine. But not a lot of meat. But anyway, so the forecast as far as kids going back to school, what's your recommendation as far as health matters and coping with COVID, girl?
Well, just like Dr. Loper said, really rest for these kids is so important. If they're not resting well, it really does diminish the immune system. So really that adequate rest, making sure that they are eating, a full diet. I'm sad to see that the kids aren't getting free lunch every day because they were getting, a wide variety of choices. It wasn't just a pizza every day or a Lunchable. I mean, they were receiving a good, nutritious lunch daily. So if you have access to it, just making sure that they have those fruits and vegetables, washing their hands, but between the rest, the diet and making sure that you're, washing your hands, cleaning your surfaces, making sure that they aren't, when their friends are sick, borrowing their clothes or whatever. Keep your own stuff, don't borrow other stuff because, now you have monkeypox to consider and there's no vaccine, that the children need to get, for that to prevent that. But monkeypox can be spread by using other people's towels and stuff. So, and kids love to share everything.
Yeah, they do.
So, and parents, unfortunately, they will send their children, even if they know that they're sick. They'll give them a little Tylenol and send them on off to school because,
they've got to go to work. Yeah.
Right. They've got to go to work. Their legs aren't falling off. So they send them. And then a lot of people, and I've seen this recently with this particular COVID strain, people are so rarely affected by it. They don't even really realize that they're sick. And so I'm like, okay, well, did you work? Yeah, I went to work and then I got home and I started feeling bad.
Right.
So by that point, you've already spread it.
Yeah.
So just stay out of people's faces. If you feel anything, I personally just don't like being very close to people. I think the COVID time really has made us all have that space. So I need my personal space.
Dr. Jennifer Rice is a board certified family practice nurse with a practice in Lexington. She's got over 22 years of experience in the nursing field and is also a adjunct professor at the School of Nursing at Clemson University. Jennifer, Dr. Rice, thank you so much for joining us again today and giving us all this great information. Again, this is so much information that we need to know, we need to hear about as back to school is upon us.
Yes. Stay healthy, stay safe, and good luck with those babies.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too. All right. We're coping with back to school today. Coming up, several fun and important events in the area with Erica Staley with Serve and Connect. You're watching Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. We'll be back in 1 minute.
Hi, I'm Master Deputy Addie Perez with the Richland County Sheriff's Department Community Action Team. As a mother, I know it's important to take care of my health for those I care about. Part of doing that is knowing my risk for developing type 2 diabetes. So if I was you, I'll take the opportunity to visit inittogethersc.org and take an online test to find out if you have prediabetes. Again, the website is inittogethersc.org. This message is brought to you by the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina.
Computers, they're a part of our everyday lives, but when they're not working, they're an everyday problem. So call Computers Unique, your everyday solution. 803-351-5821. Is your computer running slow? Won't turn on? Do you need a screen replaced? Or maybe you just need another computer? Well, Computers Unique is your one-stop shop for all your computer needs. They have a wide variety of new and pre-owned PCs, Macs, and tablets. So call Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. 803-351-5821. 803-351-5821.
Hey, thanks for joining us again. You're watching Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. I'm Tre Tailor, and we are streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page and also on their YouTube channel. Please hit like, share, follow, and subscribe, and check out all of the great content there and on the TailorMade production page. That's the home of Coping with Tre Tailor and Coping with COVID. Please go over there and do the same thing. Hit like, share, and follow there and on our YouTube channel where we are streaming live. Also, we've got a presence on Instagram and also on Facebook. We're coping with back to school today, and Erica Staley with Serve and Connect is with us. She joins us. The Columbia native has always worked in environments where she's helped people and her community, and now she's doing it full time, working on building collaboration and strategic communications to inform, empower, and to improve the quality of life. Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us quickly, Erica, what does Serve and Connect do?
Mm-hmm. Serve and Connect, I describe us as bridge builders. We create connection points between community residents and leaders and community partners in terms of connections and collaborations and empowering. But one of our most urgent priorities is to build positive, sustainable relationships between police and communities.
Okay, wow. So how do you do that?
So it manifests in a lot of ways, but when you think about the objectives, and those are goals like building trust and opening dialogue and creating safe spaces. And sometimes it's very, skills and values that we take for granted, being able to know someone by name and having someone know you by name. So creating spaces for that human organic interaction, but also creating spaces for courageous conversations that help us to take those step-by-step opportunities that build trust, because that's a daily process.
So do you kind of go into in this case, in the sheriff's departments and the police departments, and then also work with Park and Rec throughout the city or the county or the state?
Many entities. And so we work in both directions. Some of our initiatives support officers and engage law enforcement. For instance, you may see packing days. We have something called Greg's Groceries, where it provides non-perishable food items and packages that officers in different departments across South Carolina actually carry with them. And so we may engage different agencies all together, like we did recently at SLED, and where they're all working together to pack these boxes. And so officers are literally carrying packages of food so that should they encounter citizens that have that need as they are carrying out their duty, they can go into their trunk and give them something that they need in addition to serving them in that crisis. And so it's an unexpected but really, really valuable offering. We support, should there be a loss of life or a variety of instances on the law enforcement side. But when it comes to communities, that's meeting people where they are, that's sitting in on neighborhood meetings, that's having events in the heart of neighborhoods. And that does, yes, oftentimes bringing to play community partners, the City of Columbia, Columbia Parks and Rec, to find the appropriate locations and spaces and opportunities to connect with residents.
Yeah, I love this. Why do you think this is important, Erica?
It is important because I often say that for many of us, we know what it feels like to be born into community, right, Tre? We know what it feels like for, grandma or grandpa, mom, dad, or the neighbors who by name. We know what it feels like to run through, or used to, run through the streets until the lights, went down at night. We all have many of us, depending on the generation, you have very fond memories of what it feels like to be a member of your church or a member of a sports team or a member of a space that felt like community. But in the day and age that we're in now, I often find myself articulating that we have to recognize that we have to become the community builders at this point. We have to pick up the mantle. We have to walk in those big footsteps of those who came before us. And community is a verb. It's a noun, but in real life, it's a verb. We have to constantly build and rebuild communities. So I think in many instances, when we find that conversation is fractured, and we're oftentimes, I describe it as speaking different languages, whether it's because of an age difference or a socioeconomic difference or a difference in where you live or perspective, how life has affected your perspective in how you view, how you engage with others. It's because we have to create new communities now. And so it's important because I think we see most often when we lack community, we can see where we don't have the space to come together, or we can't collectively act, or we don't know how to reach each other. We don't have the space to sit and have conversations that might not be comfortable. They might be tough. And so we know what it feels like when we needed somewhere to go. We needed some way to speak to a neighbor or an officer or a partner. So we can tell very acutely when we miss it. But we have to actively be engaged in building communities before we need it, not during the crisis, but before the crisis. So that's why it's important.
Yeah, it's proactive. You guys have been doing a lot of events, particularly right now, back to school events. Tell us about what else you've got coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Well, for us, and really, and this is the great part about what I love so much about the work that we do. We work in the communities, and actually the culmination of the summer series that we've been offering to the community throughout the summer. It just culminated on last Thursday at the Belfield Center. Got to see you there.
Right,
so,
yes.
Yeah. So we have been on the ground and in communities since the end of May. And when I tell you the summer felt like it flew by, but we went through 6 different communities this year. And it's the second year that we had the Be Safe Block Party series.
Awesome.
But what we're doing now is reflecting on what we learned. We're continuing conversations. So it's not the same as a big publicized, promoted event, but we're still meeting with community members. We're sitting down and looking at what did residents share with us? What did they say they needed in their communities? How can we go back? But what we also get to do is uplift the work of our partners. And so in addition to sharing the word about what we're doing, a lot of times there's just a lack of awareness. And we have to create that connectedness. So it's our community partners, LRADAC and Healthy Blue and all of these other entities that are on the ground that are working, that are continuing to have events as well.
Yeah, awesome. If people want more information about Connect and Serve, or want to, I don't know, do you take volunteers or anything like that, Erica?
Right. So Serve and Connect, we do have volunteers. And of course, unfortunately, as with so many others, COVID was a big, created a big inhibitor in continuing some of the work that we were able to do for the past couple of years. But we, if you visit us online at www.serveandconnect.org, and you can see our events that are coming up, you can reach out to us. But the work that I do, which is full-time in North Columbia, which is so exciting. You can see some photos there. You can find us on Instagram at NCYEI 29203. You can find us on Facebook. And so we are so excited to finally be able to ramp back up in creating opportunities for our volunteers, because volunteers are the lifeblood. They fuel. Our team is small, but what makes our work big is sustaining and continuing to build that partnership. So whether you live in the communities that we directly serve, or you support the work, you believe in the work, and you want to volunteer and be a part of it, we definitely welcome that.
All right, people can, we were looking at the website just a few minutes ago. People want more information. Erica's information is on the screen. Visit serveandconnect.org, www.serveandconnect.org for information on their events, their initiatives, and how you can be a part of helping Serve and Connect do just that, serve and connect within our communities. Erica, thank you so much for coming on today and joining us. Again, such a great pleasure. I was so excited when I saw you on the stage last week. I was like, oh, I can go and say hi, Erica. Because I love that I'm constantly getting emails from you about what's going on in the community.
Yes.
And it's so important. I mean, serve and connect. We've got to serve and connect. And
We
like
do.
you said, we need to do it proactively before we need it. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for what
Absolutely.
you're
My
doing.
pleasure.
And please let us know personally or professionally what we can do to continue to help. Okay.
I will definitely do that. Thank you so much,
Thank
Trey.
you, beautiful. I appreciate you so much. Erica Staley with Serve and Connect. Again, her information is on the screen if you want more information. So listen, if you have a story or initiative that could help someone cope with COVID, please email copingwithtreitailor@gmail.com. copingwithtreitailor@gmail.com. If you've got a product or service that could help someone cope with COVID, please email booking@copingwithtreitailor.com. booking@copingwithtreitailor.com. That information is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. We would love for you to be a proud sponsor of Coping with COVID, just like In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. Also, Javis Financial Services, the Fifth Circuit Solicitor's Office, Attorney Byron Gibson, the Comet Bus System, Black Pages, Black Expo, Agape Counseling and Training Services, and Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. Now, tomorrow, we're going to be kicking it with kids. Herc Ricks is joining us along with Crystal Sewell. They've got a big event coming up, Kicking It with Dads. It's a kickball game with dads and their kids. They've got some other initiatives coming up, so we look forward to talking to them. And then Nacho Kids joins us on Friday. Lori and David Sims talk about successfully surviving your blended families. You got that? Nacho Kids, like this Nacho Kids. I love that. I read about them in some magazine, I don't know, and they've agreed to come on and talk to us because blended families is such a big thing. That and more coming up this week on Coping with Tre Tailor. As usual, I leave you with a spiritual reading. We've been doing a Jesus Calling. We're going to start something new in September. We've got some other things coming up in September I'm really excited to tell you about. Actually, I might tell you tomorrow. All right, so our reading for today, it says, sometimes events whirl around you so quickly, they become a blur. Whisper my name in recognition that I am still with you. Without skipping a beat in the activities that occupy you, you'll find strength and peace through praying my name. Later, when the happenings have run their course, you can talk with me more fully. Accept each day as it comes to you. Do not waste your time and energy wishing for a different set of circumstances. Good God Almighty, this is good. Instead, trust me enough to yield to my design and my purpose. God's got it in control, y'all. He made this day, as crazy as it might be. Remember that nothing can separate you from my loving presence. You are mine. It says, whisper my name and know that I'm still with you, even in the midst of the storm and the crazy day. Good God Almighty, that's some good word on this Wellness Wednesday today. Thank you all so much for joining us for Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. Hey, don't forget that if you are just joining us, please hit the replay button because we had some great information. Jennifer Rice talked to us about immunizations, vaccinations. Dr. Peter Roper from Prisma Health talked to us about the emotional efforts and emotional situations with back to school. And of course, Erica Staley with Serve and Connect. Hey, Danielle Lake, thank you so much for joining us and for always being on the show and watching the show. Please continue to post and share so we can get the message to the masses. Listen, until the next time, I wish you peace and abundant blessings. Take care, stay well, God bless, and don't forget to wear your mask if you're going to be out and about in a big area, y'all. And you really need to wear it over your nose and under your chin. We love you, and we'll see you next time.
Coping, find peace of mind to survive through whatever. Coping, learning the way that we thrive all together. Coping, finding out what's real. Coping, we can heal, we can heal, we can heal. Coping with stress, coping with strife, bringing hope for success, for improving our life. Coping beyond hoping to do more than survive. Ways to live a healthy life. Coping and promoting, learning what you can do. 6 ways to a better you.